No judgment, just love, so I can be me. I'm tired of hearing it's okay not to be okay. Just want the dark days to go away. Mentally, how are you? Yeah. I know it's hard, but you can get well if you want to. I know it's hard, but you can get well if you... Hello, everyone. I am Neena Locke, your host of Mentally How Are You? And today's episode has me not sitting alone. I actually have a special guest in the room with me. I know last week we went over services that you're able to retrieve and receive in order to care for your mental health concerns. I gave examples like the 988 crisis line and also provided other information for insurance providers and as well as where you can go online to find a healthcare provider. Today, I'm sitting in the room with an individual who actually works in the field right on the front lines for crisis intervention for a wonderful program by the name of The Living Room. I was able to explore The Living Room myself, and I'm excited to have you sit with me today, Mr. George Svec, the program manager and director of The Living Room. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for agreeing to this episode and to join in and discuss all things The Living Room.
Of course.
Before we start, I just want to give my audience a brief kind of update from our last episode, and then we'll go into discussing the program, okay?
Perfect.
Everyone, I just wanted to speak with you last week. I know I wanted to give this disclaimer overall for the show, but was unable to do so and kind of forgot. But I do want to let it be known. I know that we, watch different videos and we're following things on social media currently. And we will see a lot of times where we kind of provide ourselves with our own blooper, or we will give kind of play words for mental health services, mental health crises, different things that go on within this arena. I just want to give a trigger warning to let you know that on this show, we will use real language and clinical language for what we discuss here. Of course, we'll try our best to fix it to where you're not triggered or you're not upset by anything that we discuss on the show. But I did want to let you know that because I'm normally going to be speaking with clinical individuals and myself being an LCPC, we're able to use these terms and this terminology because there is an understanding behind it and we can better explain. So it won't be so many bloopers or so many play words that we use. However, we will try our best to make sure that no one is triggered, but I just wanted to give that small tidbit of a trigger warning. Okay. Again, we're here with George Svec. Thank you for coming in. I'm just going to call you George instead of saying your full name. Okay,
100% cool? Perfect. Thank you.
I thank you again for coming on and, just deciding to do this with me and to make everyone aware of what they have around them and what we're able to receive within the city and just throughout the nation, because to my understanding, this program is also throughout the nation as well, right?
Yeah, a lot of states have different versions of it. They call them drop-in centers or living room or, whatever it is, crisis center. Illinois specifically calls it the Living Room program.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's start with the basics. What exactly does a crisis intervention specialist do specifically at the Living Room?
Okay, so yeah, it's actually, we have a two-pronged system. We have both people with lived experience and people with degrees in some sort of human services field, whether it's social work, psychology, something like that. Mine is split essentially down the middle, and that means that I have people who are in sustained remission from either substance use issues or mental health concerns. What does that look like? It's subjective. So if somebody can adequately state that, hey, I'm in remission, I'm doing well, I'm seeing a therapist, I'm taking my medication, I'm stable, I can help other people with similar issues, we accept that and we go with it. There is a year-long certification process. You can get it at a couple of the local community colleges at this point, and that goes a long way. So after 12 months, it's the expectation that all my staff who have lived experience get that certification. So you get a wide variety of individuals. You get young bachelor's level to seasoned master's or even doctorate level staff that help provide clinical expertise. And then we have our lived experience folks.
Nice. So in layman's term, it's kind of what we see when on a TV show or something, they show someone at an AA meeting, and there's an individual who already experienced going through this struggle but came out of it and is now hosting the event. Is that kind of what you're describing?
Yeah, essentially. And anybody can show up and ring the doorbell and we'll greet you. And I'm going to venture to guess that we have someone that has experienced something that you've been going through if you come to our door. Whether that's substance abuse, mental health, that's what makes ours unique, is that we catch all. While we don't do substance abuse treatment at my agency, we definitely link to services for it. But anything mental health or developmental disability, we have in-house and we're able to help you.
Nice. So tell us, how and when did this program begin?
Okay, so yeah, the state of Illinois adopted the living room program, a few years ago, and started rolling it out in selected locations. It's now statewide. We've been open since January 1st, 2024. So approximately a year and a half now.
Nice. Okay, nice. And what prompted the need for the program specifically in this area?
So we needed a stopgap. It's great that people can have weekly case management, monthly case management, weekly psych appointments, weekly therapy appointments. That's all well and good. But what are people going to do in a crisis? So in response, police departments started having social workers show up on scene and all kinds of other really neat things that are really helpful in the field. But what happens once that crisis is kind of de-escalated on the scene? Where do you take that individual for sustained, treatment?
Yeah.
The ER is not always the place. So this was really designed to take some of the pressure off the ERs and hospitals to hospitalize individuals with mental health concerns. If we can stabilize, and that's really what we're looking for. We're not looking to move the baseline. We're looking to return to the baseline and stabilize, and then provide resources afterwards for them to continue to move their benchmarks and baselines as they need to or as they see fit. So really what we're trying to do is stabilize the crisis and kind of stop gumming up the emergency medical system with mental health crisis that can be averted through what we have to offer.
Okay, I get that. And when you say stabilize the baseline, just for everyone to understand, what does that actually mean?
Sure. So, for instance, our most common crisis is thoughts of suicide.
Okay.
If that's not normal, then for you, then that's not your baseline. Your baseline is a level of functioning that you are able to exhibit and control from day to day. So if somebody experiences a mental health crisis or a suicide crisis that is outside of their normal day, we try to get them back to that baseline.
Got it. Now, I'm assuming that takes some time to kind of talk with individuals, which is why it's set up as a living room space, which, by the way, everyone, when I've toured and went inside, it is literally set up like the best living room you could ever experience. There is a fireplace. There are reclining chairs. I'm going to make sure that we have footage for you all to see, just kind of a walkthrough of the area, but it's a real life living room, and more than one too. So when somebody comes in, I think that takes time, right, to talk and to see where their baseline is, because you don't know them coming off of the street. How does that process go?
Sure. So you're immediately greeted at the door with someone who is an RSS, recovery support specialist, somebody with a lived experience. So their primary goal is to build rapport and find a common ground. So that does make the process of getting to know someone a little easier.
Yeah.
So if they can build that trust and really get the ball rolling, and you get that sense of empathy coming from people, it usually cuts the time of the process down quite a bit. But we are capable and able and willing to sit with you for as long as it takes for you to stabilize within reason. There are times that we'll have to say, okay, I don't think this is working clinically. I think it's a more sound decision to move on and find a higher level of care or something like that. But we'll take all the time in the world to work with you if we have to.
Nice. I love that. I think that's great, because it does take time, right? Like if you're hiding and you're feeling a certain way that's not normal for you,
Sure.
Then it takes a minute to come down.
Absolutely. And even afterwards. So we can do all the sit down and talk we want. If people crash out after that and they need a nap, recliner chair. We have recliners. Take a nap.
Yeah.
We'll wake you up in an hour.
Yeah.
You got to get to work. We'll wake you up. We don't encourage people to just come and nap, but I mean, we do have that, luxury of being able to provide a safe and comfortable environment after you've de-escalated, because it's exhausting. And if anyone watching has ever been through a mental health crisis, they know that it's not just mentally tiring, it's also physically exhausting.
Draining. Yes, I've heard a lot of people explain just feeling drained, so it does make sense to have it set up this way so that you can release some of that and not have to be in a hospital setting to do so, which is never released when you're in the hospital setting, right? The uncomfortable chairs and everything. So I get it. You said that if someone needed a higher level of care, then you would get to a point where you said, hey, we're going to take this a step up. Do you all help with that next process? Do you help get someone to the next step?
Oh, absolutely. We either, if it's a situation they've got to get to an emergency room immediately, we'll call 911. We are also lucky to be geographically located right kind of next to a hospital.
Yeah.
And we have walked people over there before to receive services they need. So, whatever programs they have available, depending on the time, we'll actually physically walk with someone over there and help them get checked in and make sure that that handoff is as seamless as possible.
Nice. I like this. Now, what led you specifically to pursue this work?
Sure. So I'm an old counselor, old therapist, 20 years, on and off. I've run a mental health nursing home where the primary diagnosis is mental health for older or aging individuals. I did that for a while. I've done some other stuff that just didn't really scratch the itch. And when I had my first mental break, I wanted a place like the living room. So when I heard about the living room and that it is an alternative to hospitalization, that it is a place where you can safely stabilize, I wish like heck this had been around 10 years ago when I had my issue. I was already a mental health professional. And being held for 72 hours was a traumatic experience. I was, separated from my wife, my son, my job, my friends, all my supports, because for a few hours there, I was not able to stabilize. I wasn't able to get my thoughts together. So when I found out AID specifically was opening this, I knew I had to be a part of it, whether it was just going in and doing line staff stuff or, helping oversee the program. I'm lucky that I get to develop people and show them, this kind of new concept for mental health. I'm very lucky in that regard that I get to foster that and really be part of what that looks like going forward. So it's just perfect. I get to provide my own personal experience. I get to provide the years of clinical experience I've gained. And most of all, I just get to be that person that's approachable to everyone, staff, leadership, community members, police. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing a piece of kind of your testimony. I think that a lot of times people don't pay attention to the fact that those of us who are in this field, we normally experience some sort of mental health crisis ourselves at some point in life. I always tell people that healers need healers too, right? So even though we do the work, we can also go through these moments. So I like that you just put this out there that, you experienced something and you needed a program like this. I appreciate you sharing.
Oh, of course.
And, with knowing that this is what led you here and already being within the field, how would you, I would say, just express to someone that has experienced a crisis, what does it usually look like and how would you walk someone through it, being on the other end as well as being in it?
Yeah, so a lot of it is just empathy. I know what you're feeling. I know what you're going through. A lot of it is subjective. So for me, it's, racing hard or I get flushed. Other people, clammy, cold hands. There's a lot of physical responses. There's the racing thoughts. There's an inability to focus, all that stuff. And it needs to be taken seriously, right? Because it can mirror a heart attack or a stroke or something like that. I mean, people think there's serious physical issues going on sometimes when this happens. So we need to pay attention to that. And you need to focus on the person in front of you. And make sure that they're safe and comfortable and breathing. So really maintaining a calm demeanor and just walking people through it as best you can, keeping them breathing. When you recognize that, just, hey, breathe with me, in, out, and alerting the appropriate authorities. That's important.
Got it. Okay. So someone, watches this program, sees how you're discussing the living room. When they walk to the door, I know how it was, but I want you to explain, and I'll give a little piece of what I saw, just the entire process. So you walk, you ring the doorbell, and how does this go? Where can you go? What does it look like?
Sure. So you're going to come, it's a big pink door. It says a living room on it, crisis center. I'm not sure. It'll be in whatever footage we gave you too. But you ring the doorbell, you'll be greeted by someone who's got lived experience in mental health or substance abuse. First and foremost, we're not going to send a clinician in a suit and tie to ask you about your mother.
Right.
Tell me about your mother. We don't do that. We're a warm, welcoming environment. So we're going to come up. We're going to ask a couple questions. Hey, what's your crisis, or what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to avoid what's your crisis right now. We find that tends to turn people off a little bit
So
to
clinical.
the program. It's too clinical, and I think they're like, it invalidates some people's crises, right? Because it's very subjective. If your crisis is a paper cut, we're going to treat that as if it's someone who's showing up with suicidal ideations. It's all relative, and we don't want to give that appearance that we're judging your crisis. So what we've been doing lately is just, hey, what can we help you with? We're just kind of getting a baseline to see where we're at socially. So then we'll let you in. We'll do a couple minutes worth of paperwork. It's nothing. It's releases to be able to pass along information to the state, not including identifiable information, just that someone showed up with this issue and we resolved it this way. Couple releases for us, because we do hand out a lot of referrals to other services we provide within the agency.
Okay.
So we get a release on hand for that. So that way, if you want to, we can move forward with that. We'll ask you a few questions. And it is pretty direct, so it may be kind of unsettling for someone who's never been asked, but we will ask you, are you considering suicide? Are you considering hurting someone else? Are you considering, self-injuring? And they will be just kind of straightforward like that. But we have to ask it. So once that's all done, we'll get to the meat and potatoes of what's going on. You let us know, what you need. We meet people where they're at. They physically meet us. We mentally meet you where you're at, and it is completely 100% guest guided. We're not going to tell you have to do something. We're not going to tell you have to stay. We're not going to tell you how long you have to stay. It's 100% guest guided. So what happens after that is up to you.
I love it. I will say that when I went, I walked to the door. I rang the doorbell, and there was a young man that met me at the door. He didn't even ask any questions, anything. He was just like, hey, come on in. And if you want, you can go through these doors. Both living rooms are through this direction. Now, of course, I was looking for you, so it switched up at that point. But it was, if I were in a crisis, or if I was experiencing a moment where I just didn't feel like myself, or I felt like I don't want to be here anymore, then to walk into that, to me, is just so perfect. Even without being a therapist, just to think of it on just normal level, right? To walk up to a door, nobody asked me any questions, and say, hey, you can come and sit in here. If you want to talk, I'll send someone to you so that you can talk about what you're feeling. It was that simple, that easy. No insurance card, no information that I had to provide. I think, I don't know that you can get a more calm and just easy, effort with help with your crisis.
Well, I'm glad you had that experience, because that's really our goal, right? Low barrier mental health services. So not having insurance is fine. Not having an ID is fine. Not being, a documented citizen is fine. We don't care. We're not looking for that. We will ask if you have it, because it helps if we do provide a resource to have that stuff on file. But we don't require it. We genuinely don't even need your name.
I like that.
So we'll ask you. You don't have to tell us, and we'll still work with you.
Nice. So, and that, I was going to ask that question, like, saying that you gather a little bit of information to provide to other resources. Someone could get nervous about that. So it's good to know that you don't have to give the information, right? And when you're passing it along, explain that a little further to us. Like, where would it be passed along to? Just for someone who may fear, like, oh, I don't want, the government to have my information about coming here.
Sure. So the Department of Mental Health actually really got this whole thing started for the state of Illinois. They have numbers and metrics that they have to follow to justify the money that they're spending on the program.
Right.
And while it's relatively cheap as far as state-run programs go, it does cost money. So stuff has to be valid. It has to be evidence that we're using something that works in the community. So when I say we send that stuff along, we send typically just kind of what the crisis lands, and what interventions we provide. So it's not even, names, birth dates, any of that kind of stuff. Everyone kind of gets a unique number and it's put in there, and it's tracked for that kind of informational purposes. What are we using it for, and how are we solving the issue before it gets to the point where we're gumming up emergency rooms or 911?
Got it. So I spoke to a young lady who's feeling really low, needed to stay in the living room for 4 hours, process what made her upset, and that was that.
Yep.
When I say the simplest form, okay? And I think that's great for people to have. And I think it's great to know that this can spread across different careers, areas, genres, whatever, right? Like, you don't have to come just because you don't have insurance. Like, you can be an individual who holds insurance, who works in a certain profession, and still show up to the living room and be able to get the calm and the peace that you need, correct?
Absolutely. Private insurance, we don't care. We have other living room staff utilize our living room when they're feeling low. I know some of the staff that work at my living room have utilized other area living rooms.
Nice.
It doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, and there's probably someone staffed there that you're going to connect with immediately.
Perfect. I think that's great. I have a segment here on the show called Pop Psych versus Clinical Psychology. And I want to use that in this moment to just ask you about some common misconceptions about having a mental health crisis that you've run into or that you see on a day-to-day basis.
I think number one is only weak people have mental health crises. We all do. And that it's uncommon. It can happen every day for some people. It can happen hourly. It's really just a relative thing. And the other thing is that it'll get better tomorrow if you just push through it. You really need to work through the crisis.
Yes.
And whether that happens on a daily basis and it takes you, 27 days straight of coming to the living room or going to therapy or something like that to get through that crisis, it requires work. It doesn't just go away.
I love that, because I think sometimes we have this, even about therapy, this misconception of like, okay, once I go to therapy, it'll all be fixed and it'll be worked out and it's going to make me a better person. But there's work that you do behind the scenes after sitting with a therapist for an hour or whatever it may be. You still have to continue to do the work. And a space like the living room could help you do that as well. So
absolutely. I've accepted that sometimes we're a stopgap. Somebody has therapy set up and they meet every week, but it's just not enough. So they need that kind of boost or that refresher or that safe place to practice the coping skills they're learning in therapy. So they come see us every day, every other day. It's sometimes right before they go see their therapist to compose their thoughts. So that way they take that hour that they have with their therapist and make it meaningful and valuable. They take what they get from their therapist and come practice with us because they might not have understood it completely. So then we can help them out with that. We're totally cool with that. We love that people use us for that.
Nice. Now, doing this regularly, normally you see gaps within the systems that we use. What would you say is, an issue within the mental health arena that either the living room speaks to, or, we need more living rooms because of it?
Sure. I do think Illinois is super responsive. I mean, I've traveled to different conferences and trainings over the past couple of years, and I've talked to people in other states, and they're like, oh, we don't have that. That's really cool. We don't have that. And when I'm talking about other services. So I think Illinois is doing a really, really good job lately of plugging some of those gaps. What I will tell you is that once you're in this system, you start to realize that there are gaps in resources elsewhere that are causing mental health epidemics in and around this area specifically. Lack of housing, lack of food resources. Those are leading to way more mental health crises than anything else in this area right now. So if there was anything, it would be a viable option for resources and housing at this point.
That is major, to the point where I know I've been speaking with individuals about these same topics, and that's what's leading to some mental health crises. That's what leads to some of these low moments and low points in which a person may have never felt, right? Or you've always felt this way but been able to manage, and now because of these other resources lacking, you dive into the deep end of not feeling great and need something like the living room.
Sure. And I've seen a lot of advanced aged individuals who are showing up with memory and cognitive issues that we can't find a place for them to go, and they're wandering our streets, appear mentally ill, and they're not. They just need kind of memory care services and someone that can be with them 24/7. So we try to provide that as much as possible. But that's another gap, I think, that I've recognized since starting this. How many aged individuals are having trouble, post-work years, post-family raising years, post-everything years. They're just kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think that's, at least this program recognizes that and is here for all. That's what makes it, being so open to everyone. That's the goodness of it, right? Is that you can come no matter what your circumstances are, and we're going to be this space to kind of help you get through it.
And we don't take no for an answer, so we're going to call until we find something. It is unfortunate that sometimes that last resort is just hospitalized until something opens up, but we are going to call every number we can think of or find to find a more appropriate space for you to really address whatever needs you have.
Yeah. And you have been saying you guys are kind of a gap stop, right? Like, so with the resources that we're talking about, like housing, food issues, do you make those calls too? Like, oh, we can help you try to attain these services to speak to what you're feeling low about?
Yeah, 100%. So if it really is a housing crisis, we understand that is a mental health crisis. We'll do our best. We can't house you. We don't have a magic apartment building that's only open to people who use a living room, unfortunately, as much as I wish we did. But we will start to provide you with that kind of running start that you need. A lot of the issues now is as the unsheltered individuals in our community get older, they're starting to want to find kind of more permanent solutions to their housing concerns. They don't have access to the technology. Come in and use one of our iPads. Come in and use our laptop, and you can search. Oh, you can't operate Google? Cool. Here, sit down with me. I'll show you how to do this. And we sit with them and do it. Oh, you don't have insurance? Why not? Here, let's get you on Medicaid, abe.gov, whatever it is. We'll provide that. So for a lot of people, it just feels good that there's someone that's going to sit down with them and kind of, be that sidekick through this cumbersome process of trying to establish services in the area. Because it can be a week, it could be a year before you hear anything positive. So you really need someone that's going to sit there and say, okay, we're not giving up. We're good. We got this. Just come in and be with us, and we'll be all right with that.
Definitely. And I forgot about that part, but that there are laptops and iPads within the living room. And so to come in and be able to get just help like that is perfect for people who don't have it readily available to them.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to do Facebook all day, but if you want to,
No Facebook, guys.
But no, absolutely. If it's going to help your cause, and if it's used as a coping skill, we're more than happy to let you use our internet or our technology, and anything we can do to make that mental health crisis that much less severe. We'll do it.
Now, speaking about, resources that are not available to people, let's say that someone is experiencing a mental health crisis and they are literally within the streets, and they can't get to the living room. How would that look for, what would your recommendations be for bystanders and those around these individuals? What steps should they take to get them there?
Sure. So AID actually has a wonderful crisis response program that's available via telephone. The phone number is 630-966-9393, 966-9393. That's our AID crisis line. Okay. And if they can't help you over the phone, they're able to dispatch help. And typically that help will help to stabilize in the community. And if that's not an option, then they'll know the best steps to get a person to the living room. calling Aurora Police non-emergency and letting them know that you feel the person needs to go to the living room typically garners a pretty good response from Aurora Police. We see them 3-4 times a day. So they know where we're at. They know what we're doing. It's become a really helpful thing in their day-to-day. So they're excited to have us.
Nice. Okay. So I didn't know that there was a number to call. So that's great to know that someone on the street could even just call, and then there will be help to come and get that individual or bring them to you, or how would that go?
Whatever they deem fit when they get there. So it's called the Mobile Crisis Response Team. It's another grant-funded program that the state of Illinois sponsors.
Nice.
And it's meant to go and assess in real time, in real life. We are literally physically meeting them where they're at when you utilize the Mobile Crisis Response Team. Nice. And they'll make a determination what the next step is. If they feel like, oh, this person needs to be hospitalized, they'll handle that. If this person needs to go to the living room, they give us a call, hey, we're on our way, and you'll be there.
Nice. Okay. That's good.
Hopefully they're able to stabilize it themselves. They're able to work in the field to stabilize the crisis.
Oh, okay. That does make sense. But even if they did work it out in the field, they could still say, hey, do you want to go and recline back at the living room? And they could come. That's good to know. I would want to know, what piece of advice would you give to someone listening right now and following this program who may be nervous to walk to the living room's door or ask for help in any way? Like, what's that piece of advice you would give to someone?
We're all nervous. We're nervous when you show up.
Yep.
You know, if you talk to a clinician who's bored and has seen everything, then you probably want to find a different clinician. We're just as nervous sometimes as you are, but that's the unique thing about us, is that we have created a system that we're able to support through all that. We're not going to push you. We're not going to force you to stay. We're not there for that. It's literally, let's sit down and get you back to your best self as it was before the crisis occurred. If at some point you don't care for the program, or you're not getting what you thought you were going to get, or you need something more, you can tell us and we'll try to help you get to that next level, or you can just politely leave. We're not going to chase you down. We're not going to beg you to stay. It's totally at will, and you're in control of kind of what you're going to work on.
I like that. We're all nervous, and that's very true. Even a counselor, a therapist waiting on someone to show up, that they're still nervous about what to say, what to do, or what's going to come at them. So if you're nervous about showing up to the door of the living room, just know that everyone is, but you'll have a helping hand there that will guide you through, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. Now, with doing this work, right, crisis is being right on the front line. And I know we keep using the word crisis, right? But just let's say a mental health emergency or something very important, it's right there. Like it's almost like being a police officer, right? But for mental health. So I would like to know, with you doing this work for so long, mentally, how are you?
How am I? I'm fine, but it's taken years. You know, it does take years to balance that. What is the work-life balance? And especially, you know, deciding to join leadership. You know, there are times that I'm available to everyone 24 hours, 7 days a week sometimes. You know, mentally I'm well, but it takes a community, it takes a village, it takes social supports, professional supports. I work for amazing people, not only in my department, but agency-wide, very supportive. Now, if only we could get a couple $100,000 more a year, that would be great.
Hello to the people that don't know me. Can we get a couple of hundred?
But no, honestly, it really is just coming home and realizing that the struggles that I've been through, the struggles that the staff I work with have gone through, are benefiting the community, are changing lives. Just blows my mind. And to think, you know, you watch a superhero movie and they save lives. And the other day I legitimately just sat there and thought, you know what? We have saved how many lives in just the year and a half? And that fuels you, that feeds you. And that keeps me going, understanding that I really am making an impact. I can't physically climb into a burning building and pull someone out of that.
Right.
But I can sure as heck make sure somebody is here tomorrow because of something I shared with them.
Perfect. And I'm glad to hear that you are okay and continuing this work. Before we wrap up, I want to go back to one thing that you spoke about, and that was the trauma of, let's just be very blunt, being hospitalized, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to have a 72-hour hold or be in a mental health facility where you're held to make sure that you're okay. You don't hurt yourself, you don't hurt anybody else, right? It is a very traumatic experience, and this would be a step before having to get there or not having to get there at all. So I just wanted you to speak to, just how important this space is as far as not having to go all the way there, where you don't have to go to the hospital, and how this can kind of sometimes work it out to where you get things together. Even if you show back up 24 hours, you sit with the living room, you go home, and then the next, you come back to it. Is that more helpful at times than going to the hospital and experiencing that trauma?
Yeah, I mean, in my personal experience, right, I don't have any evidence at this point. It's too young. But in my personal experience, I think returning and revisiting is way more valuable than locking somebody up. So it has its place. I don't want to poo-poo mental health floors or behavioral health floors,
Right.
because they have their value, they have their purpose, and somebody else can speak to that. But I know they're valuable. What we do offers people the ability to say what they need to say, get it off their chests. We're not looking to hospitalize. And that's something maybe I should have brought up earlier, is that a lot of people are hesitant to say the word suicide.
Yes.
Or I'm thinking about killing myself. I'm thinking about cutting, because they feel like we're just going to pick up the phone and call 911.
Yep.
That's not our focus. The value is in being able to come and feel safe enough to say those things. Build that rapport as quickly as we can through the use of self-disclosure, appropriate ethical self-disclosure. Get to that point where we can talk openly and honestly about what's actually going on,
Mm-hmm.
and assessing the actual risk. So if it is something where we feel the risk is too great, then we will have to call 911. But otherwise, we're going to safety plan, and you're going to follow up on that safety plan. We're going to send that home with you and say, hey, listen, here are all the people in your life that care about you. Here are all the things you can do to stop a mental health crisis. Here are some of the triggers that you recognize, and here are some things you feel when it's about to happen.
Yeah.
If you feel that again, come back and we'll revisit it. Bring your safety plan with you. We're in the process of training all of our staff in WRAP, so Wellness Recovery Action Plans,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of the next step of safety planning. It goes a little deeper. How can you prevent the crisis in the first place? So whereas
Mm-hmm.
crisis has typically been reactive, we're starting to put some of that proactive stuff into it,
Yeah.
because we know relapse is part of recovery, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what the recovery is, whether it's physical, mental, from substance use.
Mm-hmm.
Relapse is going to happen. So the crisis is actually going a step further in introducing that kind of proactive thinking, like, I'm going to relapse, so here's some of the things I'm going to see, and this is when I should return. And the nice thing is you don't have to be afraid that every time you show up, you lose 72 hours of your life.
Right. And I agree with you. The mental health units are very important. I've worked a few myself, and it is helpful. It does get someone restarted, kind of rebooted, and take care of areas where just you didn't have help in, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, for someone who, like you said, you may not be as heightened to where you truly mean that you want to be gone, but you just feel like that in a moment. And so you may need, to stay for a few hours in a space like this, and even come back the next day for a few hours, but you'll be able to get through it, versus what going on an actual unit. And like you said, just being closed away there and receiving a higher level of care is the way we would phrase it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny about my experience, to build on that even, I was working in corrections at the time as a mental health worker, and the intake process to get on a mental health floor reminded me of like a search process. So anyone who's familiar, it's that.
Yes.
And that was so damaging to me that I had the wherewithal to come ask for help. I had the wherewithal to say, I can't control this. I had that mental clarity to know that it was outside of my control. To go in and lose the last semblance of control I had
Mm-hmm.
was disturbing. In hindsight, sure, it covered me, it covered them, liability, I was safe. But in the moment, it exacerbated issues tremendously for me.
And I think, in this episode, people will probably hear me. I keep saying perfect, perfect. Like, that's great. I love that. And because I'm excited about this program because of that, though, because I know how someone, like I said, I worked on these units. So I know how it feels to come on these units, have to go through all of those questions, which are necessary for that level of care. I just want to be clear. But we don't always need that level of care, right? So to not need it and to be able to just talk for a minute. I just want viewers to understand that this is a perfect setup. It really is, because you don't have to go through all of the hoops, right? You don't have to be fearful. You don't have to be nervous about what's going to happen next or where someone will take you. Just different things like that. You're able to show up here and be. And sometimes that's all you need when you're experiencing a crisis. So absolutely. I appreciate the work that you're doing and that the Living Room is doing here in the city.
Thank you. It's great. It's great. Love it. Love to meet everybody that comes in. And if you even want to just come take a tour, stop by. We'll show you around.
I'm going to come back and do some notes up there.
Hey, you can do your notes, or, anyone in the community, they can come to the front door and ask for a tour. It would help if you called us first, because then we could tell you if we're busy. But if we don't have a guest, I'm more than happy to show you around.
Yeah. And more importantly, take advantage of the service, right? Like, just show up. If you have a day where you're not feeling as good as you would like, or it's maybe a little different from any other day, show up to the living room, ring that doorbell, let somebody just walk you through. And if you don't want to talk, you don't even have to talk. Just be. Like I said, just be. Mm-hmm. So I want to thank you, George, for coming in and providing this information and these details about this program. I'd like to know if there's anything anything else you want to provide to the audience, recommendations, hotlines, anything that's connected to the living room.
Sure. So our phone number is 630-966-4110 if you want to speak to the living room directly. We don't always answer because sometimes we are busy. Otherwise, like I said earlier, the crisis line for AID is 630-966-9393, and they can dispatch all kinds of services. It's not just the MCRT I was talking about earlier. They're kind of a catch-all if you have questions about a mental health crisis. Feel free to give that number a call. Other than that, just keep on keeping on. 988 is a thing. It's not the most localized and specialized for this area, but it is good in a pinch, and it's an easy number to remember.
Yep, 988, perfect. If you have a crisis and you're not able to make it to the living room's door, dial 988 and that will help out. But we now have their information. You have the location. Did you give us the exact address?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's 309 West New Indian Trail Court here in Aurora. It's right next to Hope D. Wall School. You'll see a pink door. It's the only pink door on the whole building. It's on the south end of the facility next to the Pace bus stop. Come on by, ring the ring camera doorbell, and someone will be with you in 10 seconds or less, hopefully.
So true. I've been there. I experienced it. So I would like to, again, thank you, George, for coming and sitting with me on this episode. I want to thank everyone else for sitting with me on this episode and watching Mentally. How are you? Join us next week at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Next week we'll be live. I'm excited for that. And remember, if you want to write in, if you have any mental health questions, concerns, thoughts, if you need more information about what we just discussed about the Living Room program, email me at mentallyhowareyou@gmail.com, and I will do my best to answer all of your questions, comments, and concerns. Other than that, we will be seeing you next week. You all have a good one. No judgment, just love, so I can be me. I'm tired of hearing it's okay not to be okay. Just want the dark days to go away. Mentally, how are you? Yeah. I know it's hard, but you can get well if you want.